Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I'll be following up on some of the comments that were made on my Ruby, Amber, Maximus, and Gaston deck, where I kind of showcased the deck profile. Link for that is in the description. But I played against AI using aggro, which is more or less, I think, the only thing you can really use against AI to see how good this deck could fare into the aggro matchup, since it's fairly straightforward, and it did very, very well. And so what I'm going to do for you guys, and some of you were making comments when I asked, should I be exploring this deck more, playing it against my testing partner, my friend here, against some meta decks and other decks in the format, and you guys said yes. So if you're watching this video now, make sure you drop a like because I'm doing this for you as follow-up. But in this matchup, we're going to go up against my friend using a SAPPHIRE Amethyst deck, which I don't think I knew at the time, but he actually pulled this list from Humble, a very well-known player and YouTuber as well in the Disney Lorcana scene. And this is basically a full-on like heavy ramp deck that focuses on using Grammatala, the one that gains you lore whenever you ink. And so we'll see how effective this deck can be against like a ramp heavy and draw heavy deck like that. So my opponent is on the play and we're on the draw in this first matchup here. We're going to start off by inking the big queen and then playing small queen, and then on turn 2 we ink small queen and we don't shift big queen. We're going to just develop the Flynn Rider. This is going to force the opponent to put a character on board that has at least 2 strength if they want to avoid proccing the Flynn. And the reason I do this instead of shifting queen and getting the extra lore is because I basically think if my opponent wants to continue to aggressively ramp, I just want them to have to maybe slow down their game plan a little bit. And have to worry about this Flynn Rider potentially just running away with the game. Because once they get up high in the ink count, like Sapphire really doesn't have too many characters that are very big and bulky that can maybe contest the Flynn Rider. And if we get a Gaston on board, they need like Let It Go's, Hades, etc. in order to out it basically, right? Tapping it down with some of the Amethyst cards and running over it is going to take multiple characters. So I think that, from that theory, this matchup should be relatively okay for us, but we are a very tempo heavy, tempo focused deck. Here I dropped the Mulan, and I really have to consider if it's worth questing with the queen, because I do anticipate my opponent is on Fox. But the reason I opt to go ahead and quest with queen is because if they do want to Fox, I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to proc the Flynn Rider next turn, because Fox will use up 3 ink on their turn, which means that they likely won't be able to develop another character. So they sing How Far I'll Go, getting more card advantage and ink advantage as well. And they do indeed have the Fox, so they're going to go ahead and draw. So very, very powerful sequencing from my friend here, just ramping extra every turn, and then they're going to use their final 2 ink for a 1 jump ahead. And while I'm on 4 ink, they're on 8, or they will be on 8, so that's kind of crazy. We're going to get 3 additional lore off the Flynn Rider, and again, Ruby Amber is a tempo-focused deck. So you just need to play on curve, and you have to make sure that what you're dropping is the right thing every turn, because you do have very explosive drops, right? The Rapunzel coming down is very strong, etc. Unfortunately, our curve is going to get a little messed up here because we did have to go for that shift queen and Mulan line. I would prefer to proc the Mother Gothel over the Mulan to get the extra card on the Rapunzel heal. So I opt not to quest with the Flynn because I don't want to risk the opponent having another rush card. I'm fine with losing out to this Mulan. And again, my opponent is threatened to drop a character with 3 strength or more. Otherwise, we are going to be gaining another 3 lore off that Flynn, putting us at 10. The opponent does drop a Grammatala, which satisfies the 3 strength count. And I'm pretty sure at this point, I'm like, yeah, like you obviously have the shift Grammatala, and I believe it shifts for 5, right? Because the cost of the card is actually 7. They're going to go ahead and ink another Grammatala, and yeah, they have double the ink that I have. They have 8, I have 4 right now. And then they're going to use the last 4 ink to play out a rabbit. So they got like 5 cards in hand, 2 cards on board, and we draw for turn, so we got 3 cards in hand and 3 cards on board. The difference is obviously the opponent has way more advantage in terms of ink. Thankfully, this Rapunzel is going to equalize things here, and we're going to be able to draw 3. Not like fully equal, but at least, we match their hand size now with 5. This is how the game is now, guys. Like, you need to have these power cards in order to generate big swings and advantage, and Rapunzel is definitely a card that can do that. So the Teeth and Ambitions here is not too useful into these Sapphire cards, which have very, very high toughness. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink that, drop a Queen 1-drop, and then quest with Gothel, go to 8, and not with the Mulan, and just pass turn. And the reason I quest with Gothel here and not Mulan, I can't really say because I need to save the Mulan with the damage on it in order to get a reduction on the Gaston that I drew. That's right. And then if they want to challenge out the Mother Gothel, that's fine, because that leaves a character exerted that I can probably run into. So they're going to go ahead and sing How Far I'll Go after shifting Grammatala, and this looks good for me. I'll be able to set up a pretty nice board wipe here, because without a doubt they're going to use that Grammatala to challenge. Okay, never mind, they're just singing with it, which is crazy. They're going to give me 3 ink, as well as themselves 3 ink, and they're just gaining a ton of lore off the Gramma. I think they go up to like 6. The button doesn't proc here for me for some reason, or trigger, so I have to like move my ink around, I think. So yeah, still got 5. I'm going to move it all over to the side here. They're going to Mickey on the other side there and get another lore gain. But they're tapped out now, I believe, and their characters are stuck exerted. The thing about Sapphire Amethyst is you really do have to play board control, I think. Yes, you have to progress your game plan if you're a ramping deck, but like you don't have a Be Prepared, you don't have an Under the Sea, like a key to Under the Sea board wipe. You don't have ways to clear boards. You have to go wide, and you have to be able to exert my characters in order to deal with the board. Otherwise, this happens. I have 5 characters. You have 3. They're all kind of weak, even though the Grammatala is pretty beefy. But in retrospect, with a Ruby deck staring you down, Maui or in this case Gaston is going to absolutely destroy that Grammatala. So what I'm thinking about here is the best way to sequence this. Probably what I have to do is use Gothel to attack Rabbit. That gets 2 damage on Gothel, reduces Gaston by 2. Then throw Rapunzel into the Grammatala to take 4 damage. That will make Gaston now cost 3. Because I have 3 damage characters, 3 times 2 is 6. The Gaston's reduced by 6, so 9 minus 6 is 3. So that's exactly what we do. Put 4 damage on the Rapunzel, 1 damage on the Grammatala, and now I'm going to have to move over one of those inks, exert 3, and play the Gaston to take out the Grammatala, and this really surprised my opponent. And this is, kind of the surprising factor. You would think like, okay, the Grammatala is on board. Based on what I have on board currently, like they're going to have to throw all their characters into it. They're naturally going to get their board wiped just to try to deal with my Grammatala. But the Gaston comes down and saves the day. We're going to then pay 4 ink, since we have so much left over, to Rapunzel, and then draw 3 to heal up the Gaston. It now only has 1 point of damage. The opponent is left with only a Mickey Mouse. And we draw some interaction, so we're going to be able to ink that Sisu for turn, which I don't believe I inked for turn. Hopefully, if you guys caught that, maybe you go back and rewind, see if I did ink at the start of the game or start of the turn. I don't think I did. But we shift Queen on 2 instead of developing the Gothel, and then just quest for 3, and I think I make a mistake here again in gaining an extra lore. But it doesn't matter. The game is over at this point. So, yeah, I think when my opponent draws, they're like, yeah, that's game. So they're just going to play out their hand and show me what they had. They get, okay, 1 jump. So, again, very underwhelming. Not really do it. Like, you're ramping into nothing at this point, right? Like, I think with this deck, you absolutely need to... it's hard, right? Because you need to make sure that you are doing enough that you have your threats later on. But when you're ramping so hard, like, you could be 1-jumping some really good cards away and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah, the Rapunzel is technically taken out, but I think my opponent was like, yeah, the game is over. So I didn't put it in my discard. But yeah, the Rapunzel that I just took the damage off of should be in the discard. I'm going to gain 3 off Flynn. I should only be at 14, not 15. But obviously I have game on board anyways, and I have this Maximus to proc 5 lore since I have Gaston, which has 10 strength, right? So yeah, it's just game either way. Like, there's nothing really to worry about. Hopefully you don't hear those sirens in the background, but the window is open, so if you do hear it, well, they are driving by the street behind me, it looks like. Anyways, moving on to game 2.
All right, round 2 on the recording, because the sirens apparently came back around and were extremely loud, so I had to shut my window there. Anyways, I don't know why we're rolling again, because my opponent should be going second, since they went first in the last one. I think we took a break and we came back and we played game 2. But being on the play, we should have significant advantage with this ink pairing. Ruby Amber is one of the strongest tempo-focused combinations in the game, and I've talked about this before in like deck profiles. Like, there's so many versatile ways to build Ruby Amber beyond just Mufasa now, and it's a really, really strong ink pairing in my opinion. It probably will become one of the best ink pairings in the game if it can get another very powerful draw engine card. Right now Rapunzel is basically all it has, and it's still a little conditional in needing to heal a character, but I do think if Ruby ends up getting like a reverse Rapunzel, which I think will likely happen, I think that would be an amazing card for Ruby. Something like a legendary 4-cost character that's maybe like 4 strength, 2 toughness, and says when it comes into play, deal up to 3 damage to another one of your characters, and then draw that many cards, that would be amazing, right? Because that could pair with a lot of different inks, like Sapphire with their high toughness, Amber with their high toughness can take those points of damage, and then you have a card on board that can also just get procced by Rapunzel later on for even more card draw, right? It would really help boost up the ink pairing for sure. I do think that Ruby Amber is and will be a top tier ink pairing into the near future. So yeah, I'm really high up on this combination. Anyways, we develop a Mulan on turn 1, and my opponent drops a Rafiki on turn 1. As much as I'm hyping up this ink pairing, and this deck looks pretty solid so far, but again, my opponent isn't necessarily playing the most meta decks. I will have, if you've made it this far in the video, I will have a second matchup coming where my opponent plays Amethyst Steel Aggro, because I know one of the question marks around this deck was, well, you're playing all these damaged characters, how does it do into Steel, where they can ping off your characters for like the last point of damage or whatever before you can proc the heal for the draw. And that is absolutely significant, because we really do depend on proccing the Rapunzel in order to refill our hand, and if we don't do that, we basically just lose the game. Like it's kind of, and this is what I mean, like it's kind of unfortunate that the deck can sometimes hinge on whether or not you see Rapunzel. Like Rapunzel is so strong that like if you do see and proc her ability to draw 3, you likely just win that game, because she's in a tempo focused strategy and you're able to drop bomb after bomb after bomb. Versus if you don't see her, you just run out of gas and your deck can't do anything, especially if you drop or don't have any other ways to continue to develop tempo. And that's why something like Mufasa with this build is good, because Mufasa at least will replace itself, and hopefully on curve you can at least maybe get into like a Surfer Stitch or something that can draw you additional cards as well if you don't see a Rapunzel. But it's a tall ask to get to 7 ink before you run out of cards, for example. So here you can see we're developing the damaged characters. The opponent is the one that's forced to be reactive to us, so I believe their Chernobog followers ran into our Mulan there. They dropped Mickey, so they're going to continue to ramp quite heavily. Still got 5 cards in hand. Now they have the ink advantage. And this Mickey Mouse is threatening, right? Because it can definitely run over both the Mother Gothel and the Beast, since I don't have the Rapunzel on curve for turn 4 in order to heal them up. The Beast can quest for 2 because the Mickey Mouse will only put 1 damage into it. The issue is if they have the Mim Fox, they will take out the Beast for free. Beast really should have been a 3-5 stat line and come into play with like, I guess 4 damage as well, to keep it on the 4 damage, to make it so that it only needs one damage to be destroyed. We play 2 more damaged characters in Mulan and Mother Gothel, and we just can't see anything of relevance here. A Gaston would also be really good in this particular situation, just to develop a big threat that's hard to out and force like a let it go. The opponent sings Friends to draw 2. They've got a very healthy hand, and this is where this deck can fall down. Like, we have a lot of what we want on board. We're just not seeing the things that we need to basically continue to play the game. So while this ink pairing continues to be very strong, like the opponent has 6 cards in hand, they have the ink advantage. We have no top end threats developed. We have 4 ink, and it really depends on what we draw here. Another Brawl doesn't do anything in this scenario. We're not going to Brawl a Grammatala, so I just tell my opponent, yeah, I'm just going to lose this one here. The Rapunzel was next. There it was on the next draw, so maybe I could have played it out a little bit more, but I was like, yeah, if I can't do anything, you have 7 cards in hand, you're ramping so aggressively, like the game is just going to get too far away from me at that point, so we just end up scooping. If you made it this far in the video, let me know. Again, linked in the description is the deck list. Let me know what you think. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.